Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here with you, and I hope that you are all well. I am very happy to be invited by the Society for Creative Writing at Shepherd University to participate in this series of poetry readings. And I am, in particular, very thankful for the invitation extended by Ms. Sadie Shorr-Parks, the director of Society for Creative Writing at Shepherd University. And I won't forget also my friend Ahmed Abdul Hakim Hashlaf, who in fact put me in touch with Ms. Sadie Shorr-Parks. My name is Habib Louai, and I am a Moroccan poet, translator, and teacher of English as a second language. I have been teaching for the last 14 years in high school and middle school. I hold a doctorate in English literature, and I wrote a dissertation on the cultural encounter between the Beat Generation and Tangiers writers. My focus is on post-Second World War poetry, American poetry, and poetry in English, especially the avant-garde poetry, which I translate into Arabic. I have been focusing for the last 10 years on the Beat Generation and New York Poetry School, Black Mountain School, and San Francisco Renaissance poets, and I'm trying to do my best to bring them to the Arab readership. I published an anthology in which I worked basically on the beat poets in classical, which I translated in classical Arabic, and I also translated Michael Rothenberg's collection of poems called Indefinite Detention, A Dog Story, and in addition to a translation of The Ancient Rain by Bob Kaufman. My two collections of poems are called Mrs. Jones Will Now Know, Poems of a Desperate Rebel, and Rotten Wounds Embalmed with Tar. I am going to start by reading from my first collection, and the first poem is called In Manichean Dualisms. In light and dark, in decent and stark, in evil and good, in civil and rude, in heathens and believers, I do not believe anymore. These are mere mythical expressions of a reality beyond you and me, imbued in ethical intentions, perpetuated in quasi-ontological premises, mosques, churches, synagogues, temples. It is hard to fathom what it means to hold an ethnic distance, to sustain a racial difference, to carry an identity burden, to nurture a religious strife. We have had enough already of such empty promises, of situational solutions, of improvised closures distilled from our last blood drops. Let us just strive in our rotten hive as busy wandering bees, not as any quiet Americans relishing in fleece of ashes and diamonds. We still need to travel the longest journey to the promised lands of the outsiders, where no angels ever dared to tread, to elect our last prime ministers of freely administered death. So I would like to remind that most of my poems deal with the universal issues which I share with other fellow poets all over the world, and I'm basically interested in raising issues of relating to justice, to equality, to freedom of speech, to solidarity between people from different ethnicities, languages, religions, and gender and sexuality backgrounds. So this is what most of my poems actually deal with. The second poem is called Kerouacian Epiphanies in Portland Greyhound Bus Station. It seems that the inception of sentimental states is unchangeably similar. Dear clients, I shall seize the opportunity to canalize these feelings, especially to those sitting somewhere on bus station benches, unexpectedly waiting for trains or buses bound to nowhere. Unexpectedly waiting for trains or buses bound to nowhere. I would love to desperately inform you, I reckon I have never visited Finland. Actually, I probably never should visit Finland, since it is a place I love so much in paperbacks bought from Powell's books with my working class dimes. It turns out I am visiting a 21st century American dream. Now that I'm sitting in this Greyhound bus station, not because I'm expecting a girlfriend's heart to revisit, not because I'm picking up my grandmother's leather suitcases, not because I'm bound to meet Rockefeller businessman, not because I am solitarily taking an 8:30 train to Eugene. It is because I whimsically remember Jack in his French beret. It is because 50s Cadillac smoke gets into my myopic eyes. It is because my ears heard Born to be Wild on the entrance to Portland Central Station. It is because I imagine Jack's mother still weeping in front of her Madonna icons. It is because I ventured into the epiphanies of the varieties of religious experience. It is in Portland where everybody leisurely rides their fanciful organic bikes. In Portland where the deer leap and trips through your roses. In Portland where blonde girls walk in vegan underwear late in the evening. In Portland where gays and lesbians read battered copies of Gender Trouble. In Portland where the Columbia and Willamette rivers erotically conjoin. In Portland where nouveau rich American couples have two kinds of tap water. I walked in distress when I saw the old and young homeless passed out on hard floors. What would Kerouac have said about this postmodern Greyhound bus station? Shall he say again, the floors of bus stations are the same all over the country? Shall he say again, they are always covered with butts and spit? Shall he say again, they give a feeling of sadness that only bus stations have? Shall he say again, the trip was an ordinary bus trip with crying babies and hot sun? I shall not dwell in memoriam of anything celebrating this funhouse mirror reflection of Portlandia. I shall not join Portlandia's cage-free, organic, and farm fresh satires on Mississippi Avenue. I shall let the road unfold in a series of joyful epiphanies in truck stops or in this Greyhound bus station. I shall stare through the early evening windows of jazz bars. This shall be my love letters to the great American landscapes I lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Chicago, Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana. I shall be too busy for feeling love with relationship scruples. I shall just allow my muscles a space to twitch, just to live the ragged joys and go. I shall just sit here in this Greyhound bus station and think everything over. The mixed poem is called To the Girl Who Thought She Fell in Love with Rainbow. I have no existential cures saved from Armageddon for you to feed your obnoxious Buddhist creed upon. I have no post-apocalyptic memories from Charlottesville to leash your middle-aged severe concussions. I have no Gogolian overcoats to occasionally lend you to walk the half-deserted moonlit nights of Portland. To the girl who thought she fell in love with Rainbow, I cannot amortize my humanistic love emotions. I'm afraid My heart is not lendable in such times. I can only afford provisional cohabitation patents. I am sensitive to financial consequences of American relationships. My concept of love and romance is provisional. Do you remember Rimbaud's Confessions in Romance? You are not serious when you are 17. I shall venture to say in my new postmodern romance, you are not serious when you are in your 30s. You shall be tired of beers and lemonade one fine evening. You shall be tired of noisy cafes with their dazzling gleam. To the girl who thought she fell in love with Rimbaud, forgive me, I am not your vegan stepping stone. I cannot empathize with the gleam of a quivering match. I cannot trust the ephemeral gleam of your green eyes. I doubt the gleam of a flashlight in the distance on a cold night. I can only embrace a fugacious gleam of hope with intermittence, and yet I love the same postmodern simulacrum of Rimbaud. I am that particular, I am that particle of a Rimbaud you fail to embrace with your senses. I love every form of love, of suffering, of madness. I am his lost penumbras in search for a constant self. I consume all the poisons to preserve their quintessence. I live in a strict budget made of holiday salary bonuses to save enough money to buy myself a new Gregorian overcoat, while I know that politics is a mere simulacrum that bears no relation to any version of reality. The next poem is called A Requiem for Tangier, Love Memories. A Requiem for Tangier, Love Memories in Seattle, Washington, 2013. Good morning, encaged northwest night owls. Good morning, summertime early birds. Good morning, Tangier's narrow streets embedded in mercurial time. Here I am again, back from the other side to explore the remaining crevices. From late evening overcrowded Pike Street to Virginia Street, through what I scarcely remember about my past life, through what I wave unconsciously around my present life, just like a disposed past-meal somnambulist wandering in Baghdad's 1001 nights. Nothing seems to come to my rescue. Not even the phantasms of magpies I left at Shambhala Mountain Center. Not even the late July robins I kissed in Altoona prairies. My only solace grows in words, in hallucinations and scars that no words can heal. How did my life unfold in this discursive Isfahan carpet of my own weaving? Alone, I embrace the fragrance of evenings up and down Seattle hills. Adventure excitement creeps inside me with barren memories. It revives ashes of southern embers, making them into tunic, transparent, captivating, and gluing. I crave the release of a form that does not ruminate. I am waiting for the release of a girlish heart that does not deceive when unexpectedly the sun's rays blaze over the top of Mount Rainier. I shall say my word before you die. It will eventually find its path to another broken heart. Such memories I have of you, my 2-year Don Juan love, now that I pray in my dreams to Mount Rainier at dawn. It will arouse a passion, a sadness, or a sleeping caprice. It will set the arid wastelands on fire. Oh, encaged northwest night owls, oh, summertime early birds, oh, optimistic and pessimistic wanderers, oh, rebellious post-bebop saxophonists, oh, adolescent American post-capitalist bums, O wise man of 15 divisible political entities, the fatal game of time is stronger than all of our pretensions. We shall confront it with our actual living of the death that precedes our death, of our mortification. We shall dance on its ropes as it plays bluegrass notes. Since my heart cannot venture into Gates, Allen, and Bezos' back streets, I shall only send my requiem sealed with a kiss. He brings the living from the dead. He brings the living from the stinky and decomposing. He brings the living from the stuffed and beat. He brings the living from starving oval mouths. He brings the living from the marrow of those who live on bread alone. Okay. So the next poem will be a finger pointing to the full moon. The lone unbent finger I saw the other day pointing to the full moon belongs to the last martyr of a battle lost for peace. I will never forget the echo of his sighs resounding long in the yawning abyss, grappling with another generational indifference. He did what he had decided to do, not for you, not for me, not for the money you saved on his cracked skin, not for the love you extracted from his pupils, not for the prayers you blew in post-inhumation leaves. Now, as you wave your requiem prayers, his roars become eternal speech. You will get none of his sympathies, and not even a consenting silence. Thank you. I would love to read some poems also from my second collection called Rotten Wounds Embalmed with Tar. The first poem is called Prepare Thyself for Prison. Too much quiet is never a good sign. Life is as short as a dwindling candlelight unless you stumble into prison. Then you get the impression that life goes on forever. But at least then you get rid of rent, job, credit, bills, refundable coupons, and an endless commute. You get 3 free meals a day, a shower every Thursday, and probably a decent library if your cell happens to be in Scandinavia. You could be reacquainted with Mayakovsky, Bukowski, Trotsky, and Suzuki. They will teach you the meaning of great humility. The only drawback is the lack of female companionship. When you get out of jail, you will imagine the life you will live. A builder, a writer, or a producer of radio commercials, hamburger or falafel seller, a blues player, diet pill advertiser, telemarketing room manager for dating services like Tinder. Yet the time taken from you by incarceration stares you in the face. Every day and late into the night, you will never be you again. A glance at yourself in the mirror hurts like a blade in your liver. You try to prove at least to yourself you've been unjustly locked up, and you think of all the innocent ones the system will never cough back into the street. You refuse to acknowledge the permanence of barbed wire, armed guards, and aluminum dishes. You attempt to prove to yourself you did everything for the good of your brothers and sisters living in the shade of mercy. You attempt to prove you aren't human debris by typing your thoughts on a state typewriter 5 days a week, locked up in the prison of your everyday mind on the outskirts of your dear hometown. Next poem is called Dabrik Meets Matisse. The Dabrik is a native potter. The next poem is called The Dabrik Meets Matisse. The Dabrik is a native potter who sits comfortably in his woolen jellaba. He does not mind the flies bathing in his mint tea. His life on the periphery has gone untaxed. His sole preoccupation is making jars for thirsty harvesters. He sits still and shapes pottery on a wheel and bakes it in a kiln. Next week, he is scheduled to have cardamom coffee with Henri Matisse at the Salon des Indépendants. The main topics of discussion will be clay interiors, breastfeeding, and still lives. The last poem, The Day the Nazarenes Arrived. When I was a child, I remember the blonde travelers. We call them Iromin, survivors of spaghettis and fries. They came to my native Amazigh village in Land Rovers covered in red dust and loaded down with bottled water. They gave me stylos, chocolate, bonbons français, and a pat on the head for free. I trusted them until I heard them speak in a different tongue. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed these poems, and I'm really thrilled to share them with you. So thank you so much again.